So you're on the side of the road and you've got a flat tire. You check, you don't have a jack. You've got some odd lengths of lumber. You're on the side of the road. Plenty of cars are passing by, but nobody stops to help you because it's your problem. It's a you problem. Nobody else is concerned with it. Everybody's just looking out for number one. Okay? It takes you several hours to finally invent a method to use these pieces of wood to get your car up. Oh, and you also have a broken crowbar, right? You manage to get your tire off, you get it changed. You're 3 hours in. You're exhausted, you're tired, you want to cry, your knuckles are busted, but you got the job done. Okay? So, the next day you go to your mother's house, get into her trunk, steal her jack, and put your pieces of lumber in there. Right? Your kid gets their first car. You do the same thing. Why do you do that? Because you had to struggle. So isn't it only fair that others have to struggle as well? Is that a smart way to be? Is it the right way to be? Is it a good way to be? Or is it a bad way to be? Because I've just heard it too many times. I was at the sewing store and this lady got me lit up. I'm mad. I've been up reading all this stuff, doing some homework. I'm tired. And I'm kind of all over the place, but I'm angry. That you had a hard time going to college. You had a hard time doing whatever. And because you had a hard time, it's not fair that someone should have it easier than you. Make it make sense. Misery loves company. Is it ignorance? She was talking about people, entry-level jobs paying $20 some dollars an hour. Nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to work for $7.50 because you can't. If you work for $7.50 an hour, or is it $7.25? You know where you're going to be living? Outside. You're going to be living outside. $7.25 an hour, full-time job. That's only like $11.60 a month. I looked at some apartment listings today. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, $1,100 to rent. That's what I said to her. You gonna work 3 jobs so you can have food and a house? Are you nuts? Was a candy bar $3? Was a bottle of soda $3? Give me a break. People shouldn't be able to afford things or have a decent life because, when I retired, I made $21 an hour. Well, it's called math. Why should it be that if you struggle, you expect, you need others to have the same problems that you had? It isn't about being fair. Fairness would be to make sure what happened to you never happens to anybody else. to ensure that someone else is going to have as hard or a harder time, to wish that on them, or to vote for people that are going to ensure that, is bad business. It's negative. And it's unfair. If you want to pull fairness into it, it's ignorant. Nobody should have free college. We're one of the 20 top wealthiest countries on planet Earth. We're the only one that doesn't have free education and free health care. I just read an article. You know why we don't have universal health care? Because white people don't want, the white people in power, let's say, don't want black people to have it. This goes back to like the 1930s and the 40s and the 50s. They tried to put it through, and all 3 times it came up against race-based objections. That because there are certain people you don't think deserve help, there's certain people that shouldn't be helped. Who are you to say who should be helped? Who are you to say who should have access to education or health care? Shouldn't everyone? And because you didn't isn't a reason not to change that in the future. Wasn't that hard? Wouldn't it be nice if somebody didn't have to go through that? Wouldn't it be nice if people didn't have to worry about going bankrupt because they got sick, losing everything they've ever worked for? Wouldn't it be nice if people didn't have to pay student loans for the rest of their lives? Why did education balloon into such an expensive institution? When I first moved here, 1 credit hour back in the early 2000s was about $85 at the University of Louisville. So you could take a class for about $250. Now it's over $1,000. So not only is it unaffordable, you're going to be in debt and paying that off for decades. In one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Why? Because it's socialist. Like, that's a dirty word. You know what socialism is? It is the form of government practiced by the happiest countries on earth. Their citizens are rated as the happiest. The Netherlands, Finland. But anyways, what I'm trying to make sense is how the Republicans bamboozle people. We say voting against your own interests. Shooting yourself in the foot, cutting off your nose to spite your face. ruining your own life. Because what's going on is Republicans are actively fighting for their right to get less for the taxes that they pay. We don't want that. We don't want health care. We don't want free college or free, higher education. Keep our young people in debt. Keep our people sick and poor and unable to afford health care. And mostly it's because they hit these triggers and they make people afraid of other people, jealous and greedy and selfish. The government is a parental organization. They're supposed to be taking care of us all. We give them our money, and they're supposed to dole it out and spend it in the best way to take care of for the benefit of all. Most importantly, the least, the poorest. We've got a housing crisis. We've got a homelessness crisis. We've got bad drug problems. We've got poverty. We've got kids that graduate from school that can't read. Out of the 20 wealthiest nations on planet Earth, we are only 16th in spending. We don't spend that much. We don't even tax that much. That we need to cut all these taxes. Why? We have among the highest GDP, gross domestic product. We produce a shit ton of wealth. But what we get back for all that work is jack shit. And it's getting worse. Pulling home ec out of schools. Pulling auto shop out of schools. Shutting down the vocational schools, cutting music, closing the public pools, limiting the hours that the library operates. We're getting less and less and less and less. We're paying the same. Where else do you like to pay the same and get less? Why are we getting less? Out of the 20 wealthiest nations, we're 19th in revenue that we collect. We're almost dead last in the amount that we tax per our percentage of GDP. So really, our taxes should be much higher. Not necessarily on the lower and middle classes. And also, we are dead last in any spending that as a safety net or to alleviate poverty, specifically also child poverty. We're dead last. We do the least for the poorest people of the 20 wealthiest nations. The worst. But we still need to do less. We still need to cut more. So what gave me a headache was looking up all this stuff about taxes. So if I could time travel, I would eliminate Ronald Reagan. He's the one that started this long con. He cut taxes in the 80s and did such a bad job he had to turn around and raise them almost immediately. H.W. Bush had to raise taxes. Clinton had to raise taxes, trying to cover for the shenanigans that Reagan pulled. He slashed taxes, okay? Turned around, super increased defense spending, and then cut food stamps, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Cut taxes on the wealthy and on corporate entities, and then pointed a gun at all the poor people. Remember welfare queens? I can assure you that 60% plus of people on benefits are white. They're white people. Using racism as an excuse to punish poor people. And a lot of people take that bait. They hit that racism button, and people will sign up for anything. Trump's out here crowing about how he's going to give, so many more tax cuts. Let me ask you this. You have 333 million children. It's your job to make sure they're fed, clothed, and housed. You haven't managed it. So you go home, you find out you're trillions of dollars in debt. So you walk right into your boss's office on Monday, slam your fist on his desk, and say, hey, reduce my paycheck. I don't need this money. I got people starving, living outside, freezing to death. People dying because they can't get the health care they need. People unable to get educated because they can't dole out $40,000 or they don't want to put themselves in debt up to their eyeballs. Yeah, America's number one. Not by a long shot, buddy. Reagan cut taxes to the tune of a $363 billion loss. Bush cut taxes in 01 and 03. W, the useful idiot. 10 years, $3.5 trillion loss. Trump cut taxes in 2017, $300 billion a year, $1.7 trillion total loss. So you're telling me trying to take care of all these people, they're not trying to build a nation. They're not trying to advance us. They're shoveling money out of the cash register and giving it. We all put in our portion and give it to mom and dad, the 535 idiots in Washington, to spend it like it should be spent to best take care of all of us. There are plenty of countries that have eliminated homelessness. There are plenty of countries with low poverty rates. And there is no excuse for the condition of this country and its people. And what is allowed to go on here. It's a reverse Robin Hood. They're stealing from the poor and giving it to the rich. The Republicans are fighting for their right to let corporations off the hook, the mega billionaires and millionaires off the hook, so you can pay all the bills. Does that sound smart or fair? Get y'all riled up with all your hate buttons, your prejudices, your guns, whatever freaks you out, makes you scared, so they can sweep in, take more money out of the cash register, and give it to rich people. Make America great again. When was America great? About the 50s or so? The tax rate was 90%. You know what it is now? 39% on the top. Anything over $200,000 in 1960, anything over $200,000, which if you adjust it to today's dollars, it's about $2.1 million. Okay? Anything over $2.1 million got taxed at 90%. $2.1 million. That's $175,000 a month. It's my money. I made it. Well, you have an obligation and a duty to contribute. It's part of being in a society. Things were thriving and bumping then. They sure were. But then we hit old Reagan. Okay, corporate taxes in the 50s, 52%. In the 80s, he dropped it to 35%. Now it's only at Trump dropped it to 21% for corporate taxes. We're fostering and growing on our infrastructure, our school systems, our roads, our lights, our fire departments, our police, our people have built the wealth of Amazon and Tesla and Microsoft and Apple and all these huge companies. But we're going to turn around and say, hey, you know, keep it. We don't need it. We'll just, cut education. We'll cut services to poor people. Because you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Which is a joke. It was a comic in a magazine with a guy pulling on the top of his boots, trying to make him jump higher over a fire, while a rich guy looked on and laughed. Pull on your shoes. It'll make you jump higher. Ha ha ha. You're fighting for your right to drive this country into debt, even worse, to get less for your money, and to carry the burden of paying all the bills of this nation. Because that's what they're up to. They tell you all kinds of baloney to get you all wound up. But what they're doing is taking food out of your mouth and giving it to rich people. So $175,000 a month. You've got 2 houses. You've got a boat. You can travel. You can raise your family. What more do you need? How much is enough? Because by cutting taxes on these huge corporations, they do stock buybacks, which were illegal until recently. Those come in as profits. That goes to the shareholders, and shareholders are largely capital owning households. That means they don't work. It's another pass-through loophole up to the top. Call it income inequality. It's the joke's on you. The joke's on all of us. We get to pay all the bills, while Elon Musk pays 13%, one of the biggest billionaires around here. 13% is what he paid. He published it on X. And don't forget billionaire Trump. Remember his tax return? He paid $750. I've never had a tax bill that low. We've lost the whole concept of enough. Can't if you spend your money like a fool. I need to go spend $40 billion to buy a company and then run it into the ground. That's your problem. So altogether, the Republican tax cuts, $5.563 trillion, adjusted for today's dollars. The government only collected $4.4 trillion in federal revenue last year. That's a lot of money. That's created the deficit. It pays for itself. No, it doesn't. It really don't. Don't be a fool. Just how can you be that selfish and that stupid? I'm confused. It doesn't make sense. And I just had to rant about it. Good night.